Peace, peace to your host, Selah Shalom. And this is the Cosmon Teachings in the words of Jehovah and his angel ambassadors from the Cosmon Bible. And I just want to read a couple verses talking about the influence of evil spirits, unknowingly to us. Now in the book of Micah, son of Jehovah, chapter 21, verse 1, it states, Jehovah said, all angels below the first resurrection, except infants, shall be known in heaven and on earth as drudges. For they are as such as have not capacity and knowledge or strength of individuality. Verse 2, as there are on earth paupers and vagrants and beggars and criminals who are drunks, so are there in Hades spirits that are a great trial to both mortals and angels. Verse 3, and they inhabit mortals and the houses that mortals dwell in. Some mortals have one or two of them, some a score, and some have hundreds of them. Some of them continue to inhabit mortal dwelling places long after mortals have abandoned them, even till they fall in ruin. And whosoever cometh into such house, the drudges come upon him to live on him and with him. Now a good example of that is the movie Amityville Horror, when they moved into the house and there was abnormal activity going on there and the spirit possessed the husband to kill the family. That's exactly what this is going on right here with this verse. Once again, it says, and they inhabit mortals and the houses that mortals dwell in. Some mortals have one or two of them, some a score, and some have hundreds of them. Some of them continue to inhabit mortal dwellings long after mortals have abandoned them, even till they have fallen in ruins. And whosoever come into such house, the drudges come upon them to live on him and within him. See that? So Amityville Horror is a perfect example of this. Another example of this is that movie called The Others that came out, I think in like 98, 97 with Nicole Kidman, when she was a spirit in the house and people moved in and she ran out the people. But she was unaware that she was an angel or a spirit because she committed suicide, she killed the kids, but she was unaware she crossed over in spirit life. So the movie The Others and Amityville Horror are a perfect example of this verse. Now, verse 4. And if a mortal have great wisdom and strength of soul, then the drudges he rules over them. See that? So, if you have spirits in your house unknowingly, and you are strong in wisdom and strength, you can influence them to righteousness. So that's a bonus for you. That's a plus. If you could, that's no different than changing one of these young cats from gangbanging and you set them on the right way, he became a Christian or something like that. Just using that as an example. That's a bonus for the individual. So again, if a mortal have great wisdom and strength of soul, then the drudges he rules over them to a good purpose, reforming them and raising them up out of darkness and helplessness. Verse 5. But if the drudges, the spirits of darkness, have greater power than the mortal, then they pull him down in darkness, making of him a man of lust after the affairs of earth. Sometimes they help man to riches and great power. And if he have sons and daughters who are brought up in idleness and ease and luxury, then the drudges, spirits of darkness, fasten upon them, leading them in their own way of lust and debauchery, or hard-heartedness. So we're showing you here the influence of these angels. They can influence the wealthy, the rich. They can influence you to get these things. No different than how they talk about the Illuminati with the rap game and, you got to sell your soul. That's basically the same concept. You have these deities that will give you the fame and fortune, but you got to consort to them. You may have to sell your soul. So now, verse 6. The flesh eater is their delight. The drunkard their great joy. The man of riches and kings and generals and fighting men and harlots and soldiers are great treasures to them, referring to the spirits of darkness, the drudges. And all manner of intoxicating things that mortal delight in are great feast and rejoicing to them. The priest and the preacher who live in ease and luxury, performing showy rites and entertainments, are as great harvest for them to revile in. Verse 7. On some occasions, the drudges, spirits of darkness, rule over their mortal, and his neighbor call him mad, and they send him to a madhouse, which is to them a city of delight. When mortals engage in war, slaying one another, the drudges, spirits of darkness, have great merriment, taking part by inspiring the mortals into the conflict. So we're just showing you that these drudges or spirits of darkness enjoy evil practice and evil activity. Verse 8. The pleader, the lawyer, is a favorite to them, for his vocation brings them in the midst of contention and craft and lying. He is to them a fortune habitation. So these drudges, these spirits of darkness, like the lawyer, the liar, because they're crafty and lying. So it's crazy how these drudges are inspired by the things that we got going on here. Verse 9. The magician that work miracles and tricks is their favorite, for with him and through him they can make themselves manifest. And when they show themselves and are questioned as to who they are, they answer to any name that will please or flatter, even at times pretending to be gods and saviors. See that? So you have magicians in their presence that they can show themselves to the individual, the people observing. And the people observing question, well, damn, who are you? You just popped up out of nowhere. And they say they can pretend to be God and saviors. That's why you can't be listening to none of these deities in that sense, because they can always pretend to be a long-lost savior coming and returning, and you not knowing better, believing it, be deceived. Verse 10. The tattling woman that talks of her neighbor is a good home for drudges, spirits of darkness. And if the woman be given to talk evil, they are rejoiced beyond measure. The man that is a great boaster and liar and slander is a choice house for them to dwell in. See that? So a lot of people are influenced by these spirits of darkness, because these spirits of darkness enjoy these things. Verse 11. The cheater and defrauder, the misery and the spendthrift, the curser of Jehovah, the curser of gods, is like a citadel for them to inhabit. Verse 12. They go not, for the most part, away from mortals. They inhabit while he is alive. Nah, they have not wisdom or strength to go more than one length away. Some of them have strength to go to a neighbor or to a neighbor's house. And if a mortal curse his neighbor to die, then such drudges as can go to that neighbor seek out some poison infection and annihilate him to death, which is called casting spells. Look at that. So casting spells is basically when a spirit, you can influence them to go to your neighbor and do that damage. But like I said, this is the spiritual side of this book. This book is showing you the nature of the spirit world on the good and the bad side, so you can be fully aware of what's going on and how you can better navigate through the world. Now, verse 13. Now, there is nothing too low or foul for them, and for the most part they are but idiots and deranged imbeciles, answering to any name or request, like a man who is drunk, one so very drunk that he knows not and cares not. So when you see somebody wasted, you got some of the angels moving in that same manner. Verse 14. A large city full of crime and debauchery, and rich and fashionable people, and people of evil habits suit them better than a country place. So right there is a gem. So they're basically telling you here that the cities are more engulfed with evil spirits than the countryside. So what does that tell you? Start making your way to the countryside, because there's less spirits of darkness in the country in comparison to the cities. Verse Verse 15. Drudges dwell as numerous among the rich and fashionable as amongst the poor. They fill the bawdy house and the temples of the adulterers. A court of justice full of lawyers and criminals is their delightful resort. But a battle in war is sweet amusement to them. Imagine that. So when we see warfare going on, like the wars in Iraq, the wars in Afghanistan, that's a delight to them. They sitting back like in the stadium, like in the Coliseum, like, yo, go, yo, shoot him, boom, boom, boom. That's what they doing. All this is the nature of the spirits of darkness. And a lot of these spirits of darkness work for the false gods. This is like they off time. Verse 16. A laboring man that is good and honest is of little value to them, except he be a gross feeder on drunk or narcotic wines. See that? So here is telling you that if you're good and you're righteous, they have no use for you. So what does that tell you? Start to become more righteous. Practice more goodness. So these drudges, if they attach to you, they can wean themselves off you. Now, verse 17. A man that marries a rich lazy woman receiveth with his wife 100 drudges or more. Verse 18. A woman that marries a rich lazy man or gambler receives with her husband 100 drudges or more. So it's here showing you equally on both sides. There's no one better than the other. The man gets favored or the woman gets favored. No. If it's slackness on this side, you bring in 100 drudges. If it's slackness on this side, you bring in 100 drudges. Just as an example. 19. Drudges, spirits of darkness, rule over mortals more than mortals rule over them. See that? So these angels have more influence over you than you have over them. So when you walk the streets and go out in society and see people mad, upset, angry, or you got people that's just always angry all the time, the drudges have more control and influence over you than you got over them. So keep that in mind when you're in the streets and seeing somebody and they just off and you wonder why this person off. That's not normal. Consider these things. Verse 19. Drudges rule over mortals more than mortals rule over them. It was because of their abundance of their power to do evil that Jehovah commanded his chosen to marry amongst themselves and to withdraw from other people and make themselves a separate and exclusive people, that they may not be inhabited with drudges. See that? So the real reason of being Holy Kadesh or a separate people, to maintain the Holy Spirit, is to not be influenced by the drudges, the spirits of darkness. So when the Israelites was told not to mingle with nobody else, it's because they were trying to keep their high estate and their value, and not to mingle with the other nations, because the other nations was dealing with evil practice. Just using that as an example. Now, verse 21. When a mortal die, and his drudger, his spirit of darkness, have dominion over him, then his spirit becomes a drudge also. See that? So if you don't have control of your spirits, or like they say, if you can't control your demons, when you cross over, your demons are going to have influence over you. So let's read that again. Verse 21. When a mortal dies, and his drudges, or his spirits, have dominion over him, then his spirit become a drudge also, and he become one with them, fastening on whomsoever cometh his way. See that? Fastening upon whomsoever cometh his way. So as soon as you walk past, they on you. We on you. Or you over there? We on you. That's how they influence the mortals, and that's how quick they engraft themselves on mortals as spirits. Now, but if it be in a house, and no mortal cometh upon whom they can fasten, then they will remain in that house. And there they may remain a year, or 10 years, or 100 years in darkness, knowing nothing, doing nothing, until other angels come and deliver them, which is often no easy matter, requiring bodily force to carry them away. Look at that. So now, when you was alive, you wondering why you're angry and upset, not knowing you being influenced by these angels. They have more power over you. And then when you cross over you, being that they have more power over you, you become one with them. And if you can't engraft yourself on an individual or mortal, you go into a home and do nothing. You just there, chilling. You're sitting in the house doing nothing. And it's going to take some angels to come pull you away to start showing you the glories and the light of the heavenly kingdom, educate you basically. Let's get this dude right, because he off. We got to get him right, get him in the system in order so he can become one with the Creator and send him on his way. But this is the conditions of people when they cross over, when they practice their habits that they had when they was alive as mortals, whether good or bad. But here we just showing you somewhat the bad. Now, verse 22. Jehovah gave certain signs unto both angels and mortals, whereby it shall be known both on earth and in heaven, which is master over the other, a mortal or his drudges. And consequently, such matter determineth to what place the spirit of man will most rarely fall after death. See that? So it's preparing you for life after death by showing you the influence you got upon you by these deities, these drudges, I should say. This is deep. Because you live life not knowing these influences around you every day. Been going on. This been going on for hundreds of thousands of years. This ain't nothing new. It's only new to us because it's being revealed to us through the OAHSPE. But those who, the prophets, let's say I use the prophets example. The prophets were aware of these things because they was revealed to these things. And they was trying to get mortals to understand these things, but mortals didn't believe it because they either didn't experience it or they couldn't see it. Because this is in the unseen realm. Now, verse 23. If the mortal cannot control his habit for intoxication or gluttony or avarice, or debauchery, or laziness, or lying, or hypocrisy, preaching what he practiced not, or sexual indulgence, or vengeance, or anger, or tattling, mischievously, then he is indeed a victim in the hands of drudges. And at the time of death, he becomes one with them. Now they said if you influenced by any of these practices, you influenced by drudges. Now a lot of us are guilty of these things. Mainly, the majority of us is guilty of laziness, debauchery, gluttony, especially sexual indulgence. I can guarantee about 85% of the people is guilty of that. But look what it said. Indeed, he's a victim in the hands of drudges. So we have a lot to work on in purging ourselves. What we think is, we don't even know what being pure and holy is yet. Until we purge ourselves of all of the above, then we'll have a glimpse of what being pure and holy is. But right now, all of us are in darkness, trying to figure this thing out. Now, verse 24. If he have not power to rule in such matters while he is in the mortal world, he will be no stronger by the loss of his corporeal body. See that? So if you can't control these things now, it's going to even be harder when you lose your corporeal body. It's going to be worse. So it's best to try to tighten up all these things before you leave this planet. And then you got to think about all the people who crossed over and didn't fulfill these things. They're the ones they're talking about. Your uncle who was a crackhead. Your auntie who was a harlot. Your brother who's a murderer. When all them people cross over, if they haven't changed their ways, they're going to continue their ways in spirit. Although you can't kill nobody in spirit, but you can still harm another person. But you can kill mortals as an angel. It gets deep. We already read that. How angels can inoculate the air with poison and make mortals die. You have angels that can do that. Now, verse 25. If the mortal, on the other hand, shall have risen to control himself over these habits and desires, then will he be indeed at the time of death already entered into the first resurrection. And the drudges, if he have any, will be delivered also. See that? So the reverse of this is, if you can control yourself, if you moving good, if you moving pure, when you cross over, you will enter the first resurrection and you will avoid Hades. And not only will you enter the first resurrection, but if you have any drudges or spirits of darkness around you, they'll be delivered with you. So that's a bonus, and that's a plus. Now, that's like, you know, for Israelite. If a camp leader sends out some camps and do some preaching, and that camp comes back with, those preachers come back with 10 new people, in the eyes of the camp leader, that's a plus. You're like, oh, y'all doing a great job. Y'all brought 2 new faces and they're willing to, all right, bet. Boom, boom, bam. So it's kind of like that. So if you can control your behavior, your desires, that's a plus and a benefit to your spiritual progression. Now, verse 26. And not the words and professions of either mortals or drudges, nor their prayers, nor religious rites and ceremonies are of any value unto them, but by the works and behavior of mortals are all things known and proven. See that? So your prayers don't mean nothing. We're looking at your actions, your behaviors. Your actions and your behavior is going to dictate the nature of your spirit. Whether you're being influenced by evil spirits or whether you're being influenced by righteous spirits. Verse 27. So that Jehovah high-raised gods but need pass over a corporeal city once to determine whether it be in resurrection or declination. See that? And such gods put their angels' labors to work, sorting them as a mortal would sort kettle, as a mortal would his kettle. Verse 28. And if a city be badly cast in drudges, spirits of darkness, dragging mortals down to destruction spiritually, then the angels inspire such mortals as are in the way of resurrection to move out of the city, and after that they cast the city in fire and burn it down. See that? So when the drudges are overly populated in the city, the Most High gonna tell the righteous to leave. No different than he told Lot to leave Sodom and Gomorrah. And when he left, the holy angels left with him, and evil spirits rushed in, and the city was destroyed. So that's an example. So when you in your city, like right now, for example, the crime in America is off the chain. There's a lot of killing going on in Atlanta, Chicago, New York, Cali, all over places that didn't even have crime you didn't really hear about, you hearing about. So that shows you that it's an influx of evil spirits on the surface of the earth right now, inspiring mortals to evil practice. So the more evil that partakes in the city, the more you want to get away from there. Move to the countryside. Get you some land and get out of there. If you got family, if you got inherited land, start building up the land now. I wish I had family that had land. I'd be out there building up that joint right now. I wouldn't even be out here in the cities. I'd be on the countryside getting ready. Now, where we at? Verse 29. And while it is burning, meaning the city after the righteous leave and the cities are burning, that's where we at. Verse 29. And while it is burning, and the drudges distracted with the show, the angels of power come upon them and carry them off, hundreds of millions of them. And the mortals are thus cleared of them that would have bound them in darkness after death. See that? So look at the strategy used by true God and his angels of power. That when the city was destroyed, the holy angels came and captured the drudges to take them off so they wouldn't influence mortals anymore. And they're going to take those drudges off to a heavenly plateau to clean them up. See, true God ain't out here just committing evil practice like the folks got in the Bible. He's trying to save souls. He's cleaning these souls up. So all those evil spirits are being withdrawn and taken to a heavenly plateau to be cleaned up, purged, and be brought back to the ways of the Creator. And that's not no overnight thing. That may take hundreds of thousands of years, but the process is the point. Now, if this was your false God of the Bible, he'll throw you in a lake of fire and you'll be burning for eternity. That don't even make no sense. Redemption is always the ways of the Creator. If you have fallen, the Creator is going to send his holy angels that are skilled and crafted in that department to help lift you up out of the condition. Now, verse 30. In this matter, the infidel cursed Jehovah because the house are burned. For he judged matters. All right, let me come back right quick. Now, this verse is talking about, for example, somebody's house get burned down and they blame God because their house is burning, but they don't see the spiritual significance of why that took place. So, for example, verse 30, in this matter, the infidel cursed Jehovah because the houses are burned. For he judged matters by the things his soul was set upon. He said, what a foolish God, how wicked to burn a city. Because your heart is set upon a city. I love my city. I love my New York. I love my East New York, Brooklyn, Manhattan. I love Atlanta. I love the city, the West Side. Your heart is set upon that. So when the city goes down, you will be feeling remorseful, not knowing that that was a righteous act being done to clear out the spirits of darkness that you don't even know about. Now, verse 31. For he understands not that all things are Jehovah's, and that his God under him work not for man's earthly aggrandizement, which is the curse of his spirit, but they work for his spiritual resurrection in their own way, according to the Father's light in them. See that? So this is for your spiritual resurrection, because the more you get tied to materialistic things, the more you become evil, you become selfish, you become egotistical. When you strip from all that, then you return back. You call out on the Father, because you know all those material possessions don't mean nothing. Now, verse 32. To accomplish the resurrection of the drudges, the spirits of darkness, dwelling with mortals on earth, had Leka, son of Jehovah, appointed at Yesonitis. These names in here is kind of crazy too. With 12 generals, very gods in wisdom and power, each one to a certain division of the earth. So now they're about to basically clean up hell. So I just want to show you real quick the influence that the spirits of darkness, what they call drudges in the OAHSPE, have over mortals. And if you have control over your drudges, your spirits of darkness, you can deliver them once you're delivered after death. But if they have control over you while alive, when you cross over in spirit, you become one with them, practicing evil. So with that, I'd like to say peace and blessings, and catch you on the next documentary. Shalom.